Not to be a bummer, but from now on, the government might consider a lot of you terrorists.
Yeah, you know when you have one of those I told you so feelings, but it doesn't feel good because you'd really prefer to be wrong? By the way, this video is going to make a broader point that is going to take a while, so if you're one of those people that doesn't have the attention span for that, then shoot. I'd like to start by showing you part of a video that I made about a year ago. Look, when they start throwing the T word around, it's important to pay attention because it means something very draconian is about to go down. You know the word I mean. Starts in error, ends in ism. See, when the authorities start using the T word, it means that they want to give themselves an excuse to not follow the law anymore. What's that? You're a citizen? You have rights? Well, last I checked, you're a T word, so you don't have the same rights anymore. If you've got a problem of growing anger and unrest amongst your population who are becoming increasingly aware that the system is being weaponized against them in favor of the super wealthy, well, unfortunately in a democracy your people are allowed to object to the way their system is being run, so it sounds like you're gonna have to find a way to throw the T word at these people so you can operate outside of the law in quelling this rebellion. So when I made that, it was right after they had labeled this guy a terrorist, and by default everybody who was supporting him in support of terrorism. But also across the entire media in the entire Western world, there was a narrative labeling the protests that were going on pro-Hamas protests rather than anti-war crime protests, which is what they actually were, which by default labeled everybody supporting the protests in support of terrorism. And to be clear, this was not only Donald Trump. At the time, he was running for office, so he merely had concepts of a presidency. It was coming from the entire establishment narrative completely across the board in the entire Western world. But Donald Trump and his menagerie at the time were showing clear intentions to lean super hard into this kind of messaging with their whole enemy from within rhetoric that they kept repeating. But now that the presidency is more than conceptual, they have gone full mask off.
The Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals.
Now, I want you to think about how she worded that, because I don't think it was a coincidence that it wasn't just the Democratic leadership and the politicians that were labeled as criminals and terrorists. It was the constituents. That's the voters. That's the American people. The messaging there is pretty clear, right? Everybody who doesn't actively and obediently support our authority is a criminal and a terrorist. And if you're an American at the moment thinking something along the lines of, hang on, I'm gonna try and do an American accent that isn't just generic country bumpkin, thinking, well, I'm not a Democrat, so this doesn't apply to me at all. I want you to think about how we might be defining Democrat these days. Because remember when Donald Trump kept insisting and repeating that the Epstein files were actually just a Democrat hoax? So if the Epstein files are a Democrat hoax and the Democrats are terrorists, how long do you think it's going to take before talking about the Epstein files is terrorist rhetoric? Personally, I think that one might be like just around the corner, but we're gonna have to wait and see. What I'm saying is you might just find out that you're actually a radical leftist Democrat terrorist in the eyes of the government, whether you've ever voted for a Democrat or whether you consider yourself a Democrat or not. Now, if you're somebody outside of America who believes that all of this has nothing to do with you, these Americans, they are so chaotic. Actually, that one's a bit generic too. Let's go with a different accent. These Americans are so bloody chaotic. I'm well chuffed. This has nothing to do with me because I'm on the other side of the ocean, so I am. It's Welsh, by the way. It's supposed to be Welsh. Anyway, if you are thinking that, I'd like you to join me in re-examining some of the things that have happened in the world, particularly in what we call the West, since Donald Trump won the election. But first, I'm going to show you another video, and this one's of Peter Thiel, and it's from 2010.
We could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
So yeah, that was Peter Thiel, and here he is with his old friend Elon Musk, and that's going to be relevant again pretty soon. What he's essentially saying is, if you want lots of power, but your ideas are so repugnant that no one in their right mind would actually vote for them willingly, what you can do is you can use technology to circumvent democracy and take the power against the will of the people. Now, since Donald Trump got elected, we saw Elon Musk effectively shut down or functionally cripple regulatory bodies specifically intended to protect the people from men like this. And simultaneously, we saw the government hire Palantir, which is Peter Thiel's company, to make a comprehensive database of all the American people. That means all of the people's records of everything, right? Financial records, business records, criminal records, medical records, all in one place, in the hands of a man who has stated he would like to use technology to circumvent democracy. That seems like a good choice of thing to do. And it needs to be stated quite fervently that that did not just happen in America, right? Palantir has been hired to do the same thing or something similar in lots of countries. What else have we seen? We've seen several countries and companies declare an intention to force people to identify themselves via face scans in order to access services on the internet in the name of protecting children. Now that functionally removes anonymity on the internet. Anything you do, anything you say, anything you watch, anything you comment on is now traceable back to you. We've also seen the early steps of the implementation of the digital ID, which is kind of like a digital identifier that you're going to need to access your own records, right? To access your bank accounts, your tax records, to vote, to sell anything, to buy anything at all. In short, we've seen the early stages of a technological infrastructure being built with the capability of tracking everyone. Now, another thing we've seen is a sudden and rapid expansion of investment into AI on a global scale, but particularly in America. In fact, Deutsche Bank recently warned that the American economy seems to be artificially propped up almost entirely by AI spending, which appears to be a bubble. And I'd like to remind people that when the dot-com bubble burst, the internet didn't disappear afterwards, right? Just because it's a bubble doesn't mean the technology's going away. All this spending, all these hundreds of billions of dollars worth of data centers are going to be for something. Now, a lot of people are pointing out that the AI industry are struggling right now because they can't seem to make it profitable. Like, they can't figure out how to make it into a consumable product that people will actually pay for. But you know, there might be some kind of obvious solutions to that. See, what if this whole AI primarily as a consumable product is really just like the early training stage, the get all the infrastructure built stage? One way to make it profitable is to tailor most of its use towards military, towards surveillance, towards propaganda, and other shady government programs. See, that way it gets paid for with tax money, right? You pay for it, even if you don't want to. Now, what if you had access to a technological infrastructure where you and, you know, some of your closest billionaire friends basically owned most of the platforms on the internet and could basically force people to disclose to you pretty much everything they're doing on the internet? And you also had complete oversight of all of people's personal records, medical records, financial records, criminal records, and so on. And you also have advanced technology that can monitor and analyze and interpret everybody's data and input and behavior in real time. It can create advanced psychological profiles of everyone in great detail. It can create relatively accurate predictions of plausible future behavior. You basically have a government agent living in everyone's back pocket. You also have a precedent set to declare basically anyone you want a criminal or a terrorist based on criteria that are entirely up to you. And when somebody acts in a way you don't approve of or seems probable to do that in the future, you have the power to shut off their access to all of civilization. I think maybe the coup already happened. I think we might have slept through the coup.